Oh, here we go. Go live. Boom. Okay. I don't know why that wasn't lit up earlier.
Go live to go live again. That is insane.
Yeah, it's a lot of steps to go through.
Perfect. Yeah, it's working on my side too.
We are live.
So, Rob, we were going to have you field questions from the room and also from YouTube into Zoom.
Yeah, so if we get any questions on the YouTube stream, we'll just you know, obviously don't pay attention to them while the video is playing, but after that video is done playing, we'll take a break, address any questions. We'll try to speak up from our end. We got some people over here that are keeping an eye on the YouTube chat or whatever. I don't know how many people are going to be watching it. We've tried this before and literally nobody watches it live, but I don't know, maybe because it's WP Engine and you guys are cool, there will be more people watching live. So I don't know. With that, Matt, I'll just let you kick this off, man. I'm just on the side. I'm just facilitating.
All right, good to go.
Awesome. Thank you, Brad.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
All right. I'm not sure how the quality looks. I got my WP Engine swag going on. But yeah, we're the Faust team, the WP Engine. There are more of us, but today this is all we can get as far as the schedule and availability allowed. I will introduce myself, Matthew Wright. I'm a senior developer on the team. And then I'll let Terry and Joe introduce themselves.
Hey folks, I'm Terry Grobel. I'm an associate software engineer on the WP Engine's Faust team as well.
Hey all, my name is Joe. I'm out of upstate New York, currently on the Faust team as well. Great to be here.
All right, and I know, so Rob kind of filled me in, so I know traditionally you do meetups a specific kind of way, and typically have live coding and that type of thing. In our case, one of our leads and also Jason Ball, which if you don't know who he is the creator of WP GraphQL for WordPress, and he works for WP Engine, and he is definitely an architect there. So the way we set this up, not knowing that it was a live type of coding situation, is we have two videos. One is on the history of Faust itself, and then the other one is actually on headless WordPress from the beginning. So Jason Ball and Fran, who also works with WP Engine, he's on the developer relations team. They actually are going to walk you through the process of what headless is, how to set it up, what Faust is, and how to run through those. So if you've never done headless before, this will kind of walk you through every step. And then we also have some references to Faust.js.org and our Discord and things like that, so you can follow up. But yeah, let's go ahead and get things started.
And 3, 2, 1, recording now. All right, hi everybody. I'm Fran Agulta with the Developer Relations team here at WP Engine. Thanks for watching our video for the Omaha Meetup, and I'll let Jason Ball introduce himself.
Hey, I'm Jason Ball. I'm the principal engineer here at WP Engine. I work on maintaining WP GraphQL and the surrounding ecosystem. And, yeah, thanks for watching.
Yeah, so this is pretty cool, and I'm always super stoked to talk about this stuff, especially with my main man here, Jason Ball. So, Jason, I gotta ask you, before we even talk about headless WordPress and what it does, can you just give us a quick overview of, hey, let's talk about what actual regular WordPress does for the publishing experience.
Yeah, so what I have on my screen here is WordPress, right? So WordPress is a content management system, and so I have a pretty vanilla install. I have some plugins we'll talk about later. I just deactivated all of them so we could look at WordPress by itself. But the way WordPress works, right? You log into the system and you can edit things like pages or blog posts or whatever other type of content you want to manage. And so when I'm logged in here, I can come into a page and I can see the content that needs to be edited. And let's say I want to make a change to the page, I can make a change to the content, I can click update, and then immediately I can go to that URL where that content is rendered and I see that change is rendered, right? So it's this kind of like live publishing experience. If I want to add that, that punctuation back, I can click update again, and then when users come to my site, they see the content that we just made changes to. So that's the publishing experience of WordPress, which is, in my opinion, like one of the reasons WordPress is whatever percent, 35, 40%, whatever percent of the web.
Yeah, it's like
WordPress is
40%
right now.
now, Jason, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's funny because I feel like that's where this CMS this is the main reason that you just showed off, man, of why it's grown so much since its infancy, since you started man, you've been using it for so darn long, man. I gotta tell you, because it's encapsulated that much percentage of the web, and it's still, I would say it's probably still growing no matter what people say or what developers do on Twitter and like bash it back and forth. That's exactly the power of this. Now, it's interesting to me because like from the headless experience, is it possible to get this same experience, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so when we're talking about headless WordPress, right, we're talking about using something other than the WordPress theme rendering layer to show our content. And so over the past however many years, probably pushing a decade at this point, but there's been a rise of JavaScript frameworks, right? And specifically component-based frameworks like React and Svelte and Vue and things like that. So there's this push for developers to say, hey, businesses are publishing content in WordPress, and we want to respect that as a CMS. But as developers, we want to adopt to modern architectures. We want to build component-based experiences, right? So as developer teams, you can arguably move a lot faster if you're building component-based architectures. You can build these isolated pieces that declare the data they need, the markup that is being output. So how can we marry these two worlds, right? How can we build component-based architecture on the front end and let developers use the tooling and stuff that makes their jobs easier, while still letting the publisher publish in the CMS that they're used to? And so today we're going to be talking about Faust, which is a JavaScript library built on top of Next.js that we're building here at WP Engine that allows us to build with Next.js and React, consume data from WordPress, and have this same real-time publishing experience. So it's kind of this best of both worlds for the developer and the publisher. So
that's awesome. Now, it's interesting to me because like working with you here at WP Engine, and obviously I'm a big fan of your work. Can you give us a little bit of context around, hey, we're going to marry these two worlds, but that thing in the middle that's going to pass the data back and forth is how can we consume that WordPress data from its back end and say, hey, Next.js, Faust.js, here's the WordPress content, and then render it how you would like as a developer.
Yeah, so I'm gonna hop back into my WordPress dashboard here. As I mentioned, I have some plugins here. So one of the plugins that I have installed is WP GraphQL. So I'm gonna go ahead and activate that. And what WP GraphQL is, it's an API layer for your WordPress site. So GraphQL stands for Graph Query Language, and so it brings this API to WordPress so that we can write queries to get data out of WordPress. And one of the best ways to see how this works is to visualize it. So there's what's called a graphical IDE that ships with it. So we can come here to graphical and open this, and we'll see this IDE loads up. And the way this works, the way GraphQL works is that there's a schema that describes what's possible to be queried from your API. And so when this IDE loads, we have documentation.
There's plenty of pizza, y'all dig in.
And we can search this. So we know that this WordPress install manages posts and media and pages and comments, right? So we can search for things like that. We can search for posts, and we'll see all the different ways that posts can be interacted with from the API. We can search for page and see all the different page ways we can interact with pages in here. So like one example, I can click into these, and we can see that root query has a field called page. If I click on page, we can see the arguments that are accepted, and then we can click on the type of object that would be returned from the API, and we can see what fields that has. So we can see that a page has ancestors, it has children, it has IDs, it has authors, it has comments, all these things. And so the way GraphQL works is you, the client, the person building the pages, you get to describe via the GraphQL API what information you want. So we can write a query starts with these braces and we can query for something. So I'm just gonna query for a list of pages. So I'm gonna say, I want a list of pages, and so we can use the documentation here. I command clicked on this and it took me to this. So pages is gonna return a connection, which has the field nodes. So I'm gonna write nodes. And if I click on this, it'll be, each node is a page which has all of these fields. And so for me, I know that I want to query for the ID of the page and the title of the page. And so I can click play here and you'll see that we'll get a list of pages with their ID and the title. So GraphQL allows me to browse what's available in the schema, and then query for exactly what I want from that set of data. So all this data is but only what I ask for is going to be returned. So if I decide later that I also need the date, right?
Yeah,
that
so
this was published, I can query for that when I need.
So let me get this straight, Jason. What you're telling me is whatever I ask for from WordPress's database with WP GraphQL, I'm going to get exactly that back, nothing more, nothing less. Am I hearing this right?
Yeah.
Oh man, stoked.
And what's cool too is we can do like relational queries as well.
Okay.
So like in like a RESTful API, for example, if I wanted a list of pages, I would have to hit one endpoint for pages, and it would have like the ID of the author of every page, for example. And then if I wanted the full information for the author, I would have to do follow-up requests to the author endpoint. But with GraphQL, I can ask for related resources like the author. And then the author is a node, so I can ask for the author's node, and then I can ask for information like the name of the author and the author's ID. So then I can execute that. And then this is just some dummy content, so like this is just a Faust Omaha Meet user is the author of this content, but whatever the author is, it would be returned, right?
And it's cool because, like, honestly, visually, the shape that you're asking for in this, it's coming back the same way. That's cool,
Yeah.
man. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some really cool features with GraphQL too, like there's a feature called aliases, for example, so we can, if we wanted our pages to be called something else, like, I don't know, list of data, like,
Okay.
I can name it whatever I want, give it a colon, and then when I execute that request, it comes back with the name that I provided it.
Oh, okay.
And like, if I wanted to call data instead of nodes, right? We have a list of data and we have data, right?
Oh, that's cool.
Cool, so like, it lets me do what I want. We can also do arguments, like,
And you can pass in, yeah.
yeah, we can filter. Right now I'm querying for a list of one thing though, so it's not easy. So let's add another page real quick and we'll just look at this and then we'll move on to Faust. Another page. So I'm just gonna publish another page with some content. And we'll publish that. So again, in normal WordPress, right, I can go view this page and another page is there. Right? So I just created a new page and I'm viewing it in my WordPress rendered site, right? So that's when we're talking about headless, we want that feature to exist. Yeah, so we can go back to graphical again and we can query our list of pages, and this time we'll see 2 pages, right? We have another page and sample page. Well, we can pass arguments to our queries like first one. I want just the first page. So if I execute this, I'm just gonna get the first page.
Oh, right.
Right. So we can pass arguments, we can filter our queries, we can do all sorts of real fun stuff.
And Jason, I was gonna ask you too, say I'm like kind of new to just overall, not only WP GraphQL, but the GraphQL space, and I'm kind of like, I wanna, I'm more of a, I wanna see everything laid out and a drop-down guy. Is there is there some functionality on here that I could do that?
Yeah, sure. So there's a feature here called Query Composer, so you can open that up, and this will show you query, like as you make changes, it will show you query here, and you can click to compose it. So let's say pages, we're querying for the ID and the title, and then we're querying for the author. Let's say we wanted the author, I don't know, maybe we have the name, maybe we want their first name and last name. So I can click these and it will modify the query for me. Or I can uncheck them as well, and it will, modify the query on my behalf. So yeah, that's a cool feature as well. I end up usually just typing, but that's just my preference, because it does have autocomplete, right? Like, so as you start typing, it will give you like all the potential matches, right? So like, I just type the letter A, and it's like, oh, here's all the fields on a user that have the letter A, right? So then I can pick, oh, maybe I want the avatar, and then what fields does the avatar have? Okay, the avatar has a URL, right? So then I can query for the avatar's URL, which I think this one, we actually looked at that. What was that URL? There you go.
Boom.
There's my avatar.
Yeah. Oh, sweet, dude. That's awesome, man. That's the power, I think, of WP GraphQL and GraphQL itself. I think there's different use cases for like, hey, sometimes I don't know when you might want to use the REST API, but honestly, I just use WP GraphQL when I'm doing headless WordPress, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's talk about headless now. Like, how can we take advantage of component-based architectures, and being able to query like this to build those experiences, but not miss out on that publishing experience. So what I have a Faust boilerplate set up. So you can actually set this up if you use local WP. So go to localwp.com. If you use that tool, you can create a new WordPress site locally from a blueprint. So I'll actually show that super quickly.
Okay, here's the app.
My watch was not exciting her.
I can edit that.
Yeah, so from local, you can actually create a new site, and if you click create from blueprint, it's gonna let you choose. And so what I did, I created a blueprint using this Faust.js scaffolding, and it created a local WordPress site on my machine, on my Mac, and it set up a Faust site to go with it, which is pretty cool. So that's basically what we're starting with. I've added a little bit of code to it, which we can talk through. But if you follow those instructions and do a Faust scaffolding here, you'll be roughly at the same spot I am from where we're going to be talking about things. And I'll show you how to get there. If you go through that and then click go to site folder on your machine, it will open up a finder that takes you to your site. And what's in here, you have under app, you have WordPress, so app, public, and then you have your normal WordPress stuff like WP content and things like that. So your WordPress plugins, like we look in here, we'll have WP GraphQL, Faust, all that stuff. But then the app node, this is where your Faust site will live. So this is what I have open in my code editor now. So that's what we're going to be looking at. And so with that open in my code editor, what I'm going to do, what you would need to do at this point, you would open this, and in a console you would have to run like npm install. That will install all your dependencies. I've already done that, so that's super fast for me. And then you will also, by default, there's a env.local.sample file. So this is a .env file. You'll want to copy that, paste the values into your .env.local. So for me, I have a WP Engine site called
It's gonna pop up on the screen.
.wpengine.com that I created just for this. So we're going to be connecting to that. And then I have this Faust secret key, which I'll show you how to get that in just a second.
Okay.
Well, actually, I have to show you that right now. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to go plugins, and we're going to activate the Faust WordPress plugin.
Okay.
And the Faust WordPress plugin, what it does, it allows you to configure your front-end site where your headless site will be rendered. And then it gives you the secret key, which is used for previewing like unpublished content. some other settings down here. I don't think we're gonna dive too much into those today, but there's some other settings. So you make sure you copy that. So this key you take and you put it in here. That will allow us to preview content that is not yet public. Right? So unpublished content that I want to see how it will look in my headless template, that key lets me do that. So with your URL and your key set up, so once you have your environment variables all set up and whatever, you can start the site by running npm run dev.
Okay.
And this is going to start your site. So we have localhost 3000, right? So what this is doing, it's running the Next.js server locally on my machine, and it's pointing to my WP Engine site, my WordPress site that I'm using as a CMS, and it's getting data out of that and then outputting it into a next app. So if I click localhost 3000, we're going to see some content here, right?
Nice.
There's some information here.
And Jason, this information's coming from WordPress, this data.
Technically, at the moment, this template specifically, I think is hard-coded.
Okay. Okay.
But yes, it is hooked up to talk to WordPress, and so let's talk about that. So the way one of my favorite features about Faust is this concept called the template hierarchy. And if you've ever built a WordPress site with normal PHP theme rendering, you might be familiar with this concept. But the idea is that when you visit a URL in WordPress, WordPress identifies what you're trying to visit, like whether it's a page or a blog post or a car or a house or a user or and whatever content type that you're managing, the URL represents what that thing is. WordPress identifies it and then allows a specific template to be returned to represent that, right? If you're on a real estate site, you're gonna have a template for houses that show number of bedrooms and number of bathrooms and a gallery, but your blog post is gonna have a different template, right? Where it has the author's name and the title, right? So you're gonna have different templates for different types of content. Your homepage is gonna look different. Your blog roll page, which has a list of posts, that's gonna look different. So there's various templates, and they're all represented by a URL, right? A URL indicates that WordPress needs to return a different template. So when you go headless with WordPress, it's up to you to figure out how to bring that experience back, but Faust brings it back for you, and it's really cool. So what we see here, when I have console logged here, is when I visit a URL, we see possible templates resolved, and this is going to be in priority order. So from left to right, Faust is going to attempt to load a template called front page. If it can't find it, it will try to load a template called home, and then a template called index. And if I change the URL that I'm visiting, we'll see this change as well. So if I go into my WordPress dashboard again, I'm going to go to like my posts, and I'm going to copy one of these URLs here. So coming here, I'm going to copy this URL, or we'll just go, oh shoot, yeah, the wrong setting there. I'm just going to copy the slug for this, so I don't have that up yet. We'll get there. But I'm going to copy this slug, and if we look at that on localhost 3000,
Append it to that, yeah.
so
Boom.
this is going to show a different template, and if we look at the console log here, it says possible templates resolved for that URL, single post hello world. So if there's a template for that specific post, it will use it. Otherwise, it will fall back to single post, then single, then singular, then index, right?
Oh.
So if I want all of my posts to look the same, I can use one of these fallback templates. But if I want this specific one to have its own template, we can do that. So if we come in here to faust.config.js, this configures Faust, and one thing we do here is we tell it what templates to use. And so we can define this wherever we want on our own code base. So for me, I'm importing templates from a directory called WP-templates. You can put this wherever you want. But if we go to templates, we can see this templates file. I have a series of templates configured. So we have a front page template, a page, a single, an archive, and a singular. If I want this hello world post to look different than everything else, I can provide a template for that. So I can say single post hello world. So if I provide a template for that anywhere in this list, so we're gonna put this one in quotes, and we'll do colon, and then we're gonna provide a component for it to render. And I'm just gonna do something super basic. We're just gonna return.
Just the regular React component or something.
Yeah, this is a React component right now. We'll just return like h2
Hello world or something.
hello world, yeah. And we'll like, I don't know, should we style something?
I think so.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So this post, if we look, it's gonna resolve to that template. So this URL will try to resolve to that template. But any other post in my site, like if I go publish a new post, another new post
Okay.
with some other content, we come and copy this URL. We can have another new post, and then we can have, you know, sample page. Well, what was that one?
What was the other?
We had another new post, and then we had sample post, I think, or hello world. Yeah. So we have our hello world post rendering in its own template. We have another new post rendering in its fallback template that all posts share.
So
yeah. So whatever type of content we want, we can now map templates in our headless front end, and it's pretty cool how it works.
So, just out of curiosity, Jason, you mentioned it at the top of the video that this is built on top of Next.js, right?
Yes, correct.
So could you kind of like tell us a little bit of how, like, because I'm pretty sure Next.js has its own methodologies and approaches on how, like, if somebody were to be using Faust, how to, hey, I don't want to use the WordPress templates. I want to use Next.js's page-based file routing.
Yeah.
How does that work in this system, if you will?
Yeah, so both can coexist, right?
Okay.
So what we have to get Faust working, we looked at the Faust.com config, but yeah, we probably should have looked at this too. Under pages, we have this what's called fallback URL for Faust.
Okay.
It's the syntax, you have these braces and then ... WordPress node.js. And what this does is it handles that magic that we just looked at. So it talks to WordPress on your behalf, given the URL that the user visited. It talks to WordPress, figures out what the thing is, and then determines which template to return. But that's a fallback. So if you want to override and provide a specific template, you can. So I can, under pages, I can create like a new file here. We call this like, I don't know, we'll just call this like fran.js, right?
Okay.
And we could say like const fran equals, and I'm just gonna create a component.
Okay.
We'll set up h1. Okay. And then we'll say export default fran. Is that right? Did I do that right? Or no?
I don't think you have to call. I don't think.
Okay, export default fran. So what's gonna happen now is if I visit my site /fran,
Yeah.
Next will load this page instead of trying to load from WordPress.
Okay.
So
and it'll give Fran his own path, yeah? In Next.js?
Yeah,
Cool.
exactly. So now we have hello Fran. So
Sick.
now I can get data from, you know, wherever I want, right? And I'll put it here. So yeah, like I could potentially, you know, fetch data from Shopify or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm not gonna do it in a component,
Yeah.
right? So like Next has conventions like what is it, like export? I don't remember it off the top of my head, but it's like export
async function.
Yeah, get server
Yeah.
side props or whatever. So you can do that kind of thing in here, or it's like get static props. You can do that in here. So whatever you can do in Next, you can keep doing.
Okay,
But then you also have this fallback. So the way it's gonna work is Next is gonna try and determine if you have like a hard-coded path for something
Yeah.
using Next file-based routing, it will resolve to that. If they can't find a match, then it will attempt any fallback templates. And you can actually have multiple fallback templates. So you could have a fallback template that talks to Shopify, and a fallback template that talks to WordPress, and a fallback template that talks to whatever. So in our case, we have the one fallback template that says, hey, given a URL, like this URL, if it can't find a file-based path that matches that, try to figure it out using this fallback template. This fallback template pulls in stuff from Faust. It passes that URI. Faust determines what the thing is by talking to WordPress, and then routes to a template.
So in other words, Jason, if I'm just wrapping my head around this, that bracket WordPress node here, that acts like a catch-all that's catching everything from the hierarchy and then resolving it. Say, hey, this is what you were asking for, user. We're
Yeah,
gonna show you this. Okay, got it. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so that's how that works. So now, so we talked a little bit about the template hierarchy. We looked at how you can like get data from WordPress, how you can map it to a specific template. I guess what's next, so when we're looking at the templates, we created this, let's go back in here, the templates.js.
It'll be cool to see the magic of like, using WP GraphQL and like, I know that Faust is using, it used to use GQt, now it's using the Apollo client.
Yeah, so right now, like, I gave it a template, but I'm not really asking for any data from WordPress.
Yeah,
And obviously we're gonna want to, so, I'm just gonna stay in this file for now, but like, normally you would probably break this into separate files and import like, kinda like we've done up here. But for now, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take this component and I'm just gonna make it a different component. So we'll say const, what was that component called? What did we call it? Oh, hello world.
Hello.
So we'll call it hello world template.
And just to be clear, Jason, you are in the index.js file in the WP-templates folder, correct? Okay,
Right, WP templates index.js.
Got it.
So I'm gonna create this, and we're gonna say that component is used for this. And now to query data, so we should get the same exact results. So we should get the same exact results if we go look at hello world again. Where is it? Yeah, hello. Oh, one too many. So hello world, we're still getting the same render template with the red text. We can change it to green just so you can see that this is working. So green, and if we go look back, green, red. So now to get data, what we can do is say export, or what is it? Hello world template dot query.
Yeah.
And that this is gonna equal, what do we have? Let's see. I don't have this memorized. I think it equals GQL.
And then
I'm gonna have to look at this real quick. Sorry, I don't have this memorized.
That's okay.
Right here.
No, I don't either.
And that is imported from the ball client. Okay. So we come back where index.js. Okay, so we're gonna import GQL from Apollo client.
Okay.
So and then we give it a query. So this is where we use the tool graphical. Right. If we come into graphical, we can query for whatever. So I'm just gonna take this query for now. Like this isn't actually what I would use on this template, but for now, just to see it working, I'm gonna put this query in here. And then what happens is we actually get payload of data returned here. So I'm just gonna output that data. We're gonna do a pretty tag, which is just like so we can kind of print this stuff out.
So the data payload, Jason, for pretty new users of this approach, is that coming from that payload? Is that coming from the Apollo client, or is that coming from where's the actual data that you're destructuring coming from?
Yeah. So what happens is this template executes this query. Whatever query you tell it to execute. Well, so first the template hierarchy executes what's called a seed query to figure out, given the URL that you visited, what is the thing? It determined that this thing is a page or a single post called hello world. So determine that information, and then it executes this query, which we queried for a list of pages, and then it passes the results of that in through here. So if we go back and look at our, which page was that? Oh, that was the hello world. Which one? Yep. So if we look here now, what I've done is we queried for a list of pages, and now we have that data. Of course though, like this is a weird thing to do on this template, right? Like we have a template for the single post hello world. Like why are we querying a list of pages? We probably want to query something about that thing, right? About this particular page.
Sure.
And so the way we could do that is with variables. So we could say hello world template dot variables. And so in GraphQL, we already talked about how we can pass arguments to GraphQL queries, right? We looked at how we can pass the first or whatever. So variables, what this is going to do, this also is going to pass us some information. I can't remember the shape of it, so I'm going to have to log this out. This is going to pass us information from the C query that we can then use in our query. So I'm going to look at that in a second. So I'm just going to save this data here. What happens if I refresh here? We should see the console log if I did that correctly. Yep. So we get this. We get these variables returned to us, so we can use any of this information that's passed here. We can use in our variables. So let's go back to graphical and we'll create an actual query for this exact page. So in graphical, if we were in a query for like this particular post, we could potentially do something like this. There's one of my favorite queries is what's called node by URI. And if we know the URI of something like this, the path to that thing, the path to the resource, we can use it as the input, and then we can query based on that. So we can query for things like the ID and the type name. So if I pass hello world and execute this, we will see that that's the ID and that's the post.
Post type, okay.
And then using one of my next favorite features in GraphQL, we'll use what's called fragment, and we can query for details on this thing. So we can say fragment, and you can name this whatever you want, like it could literally be whatever you want. And then you say what type of thing in the graph are you querying for? So we're querying for a post, right? We can see that the type of this thing is a post. So if we query for a post, what information do we want? Like what would you want on a template for this?
Title of a post I would want. I would also like the content of the post. And then the featured image if there is one.
Featured image.
Enough.
So featured image is its own connected node. It's its own project, so we can query for that. So now what I can do then, let's say we want the title, the featured image, and the content. I can just come up here and put this fragment in my query, and then we can execute.
And we'll do the thing. Oh, okay. And that's repeatable, right, Jason? I can take that fragment and whatever query I have, I can spread through it, and then whatever you want, and it'll. Cool.
Yeah, so I can query for one thing or a list of these things.
I don't have to rewrite a query. Yeah.
Yeah, super cool. So anyway, I'm gonna get rid of this list. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna actually take this query, right? We're gonna take this query as it is. We're gonna go take it into our code base here. We're gonna replace it here.
All right.
Actually, before we do that, we want this to be dynamic, right? We want this to match the URL. So we're gonna make this what's called a GraphQL variable. So we're gonna say URI, that'll be like the $sign, it'll turn green in here. And to tell GraphQL to use this variable, we have to define it. And so to define a variable, you have to name your query, and to do that, you give it the operation name query, and then you name it. And this again can also be whatever you want. So we're gonna call this like get node by URI, but we can name it whatever we want.
So that's an operator name, and it can be whatever that you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this variable can also be whatever, like we get to name it what we want. I'm gonna name it URI, And then we have to tell GraphQL what type of input it is. So for us, the URI, if I'm gonna command click on this, and it's gonna tell us URI is a string. So I'm actually just gonna copy that, and I'm gonna paste it right here. So we're telling the query that we have a variable that we can pass to the query, and it's a URI, and it's a required string. So it's a string, and that means it's required. It's non-null. It has to be, we have to pass a value.
Okay.
And so in the IDE, we can open up this variables down here, and we can say URI, and that's where we can pass the hello world URI.
Okay.
Let's see, so I'll copy that again. So I can pass that here, and you'll see when I execute this, we get the hello world.
Got it.
Great. So I can copy this now, like I was going to. I'm gonna put it in here. And so what we have to do though from this variables function, we have to return a URI at least. And so when we console log the data, we see all this data was here, and there actually already was a URI. So we can actually just leave this out if we want, and it will work.
Oh, cool.
Right? Or we could, return, like, data,
Got it.
or whatever. So like that will work, like if we want to console log it for our own sake and then return it still, we can do that. Or actually, we'll just return data, cause, wait, is it gonna be data or URI? Yeah, I think we just
I
return
think
data.
you just return data, cause you just structured it,
Yep.
so it should work. Oh, crap.
Maybe not, maybe I do have to do.
Oh.
that.
Yeah.
No, I'm just gonna get rid of that. Oh, what's
Oh,
it?
no.
What am I missing? Let's see, go here, what other templates?
That's a lot.
We use variables, return, oh, I gotta return it as an object.
I forgot about that.
There.
Okay.
So I have to return an object that has a property URI.
Okay.
Seems like that should have been working, but something in my head's not clicking. Anyway, so you can, so we can make this dynamic now. So whatever
Nice. Whatever.
URL we would query for, it
It'll
would be
give
able
us
to
the-
get information about that thing.
Heck yeah.
So now, let's turn this into like, instead of just like a output like that, let's actually do something with the data. So we'll say the data we have the title. So let's kind of make a pseudo template real quick.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna create a fragment. And we'll output our H2. So we're gonna do data. If we look at the raw, we have the data, and then as title. So we're gonna say, we can destructure this a little bit further, because it's gonna come through with the whatever this field is named. So we see node by URI was there. So we're gonna say const title date.
Date.
What did we query? Did we query for date? We queried for featured image.
Featured image.
I'll start with title and content equals what was it? Node by URI, and then well, we can do this. Let's do that. We'll say node by URI. Did I do that right?
That looks
Do
right.
I need that colon?
Yeah, because you do.
Alright, and then we're gonna put the title here. And we're gonna say paragraph, and we're just gonna go old school, cause this is gonna be HTML, so we're gonna say dangerously set HTML. We trust this content, cause it's coming from the CMS we work on, so we're gonna do that, and I'll just soft close that. Alright, so now we got the content, so we'll start with that for now. So what's really cool though, is now I can go back into, I don't know why I keep saying that. That's something about dev mode. But what we can do is go back into our pages and
It can work
we
with
can-
dev now, yeah.
Yep, so now we can edit, or no, we were on Hello World, right?
Yep.
We can go to Hello World
Oh, this is cool.
and we can like, I don't know, we'll just like add a bunch more punctuation here, and then we can go back to Hello World, we can refresh the page,
Oh.
and we'll see our content. So,
Updated.
so similar experience to what we get with
Whoa,
the normal WordPress.
that's awesome.
So yeah, now we're able to build components that declare via GraphQL exactly the data that they need. And then we can use whatever we want, whether it's like styled components or Tailwind or whatever you want. It'll go through the normal build tooling that you're used to on the front end. We'll get our hot module reloading, we'll get our tree shaking, and you know all this fancy front end stuff that everybody's used to using now. So we can get our content from WordPress. Publishers can publish like they normally would publishing, but then we can output it, you know, on a front end of our choosing.
So this is pretty cool because I think one of the values that you just nailed on the head, Jason, is the uninterrupted workflow of that publisher, regardless of traditional WordPress or now doing headless WordPress. Plus, I gotta tell you, because you know, obviously you and I are very on the headless side proponents of it. The unhandcuffing for front-end developers to literally not having to obey whatever template is in a monolithic WordPress. They have the freedom to like just go and develop and design on the front end. This gets me stoked, y'all. This is dope. That was awesome. The template hierarchy explanation and the parity between the JavaScript world and the WordPress world. But Jason, quick question, and you know the advanced custom fields plugin is quite popular in the WordPress space. What if I wanted to add like my own custom content types and custom fields? You know what I mean? I know you're pulling this is the default stuff that WordPress has, but yeah, what if I wanted to use ACF, you know?
Yeah, so that's a good call out. So yeah, we made templates for posts and pages and whatever, and we can do that. But yeah, with advanced custom fields, so I have that active. I'm gonna activate advanced custom fields. It's the pro version, and when I activate that, over here on the left I have ACF menu, and with ACF 6.1, which was pretty new, we're talking like a couple weeks old only. We have now the ability to configure post types and taxonomies over here. So what's cool is I can add a new post type. So let's say, like I mentioned houses, so let's create a houses post type, right? We'll just call it like houses, singular label we'll call house, and then it'll ask for a post type key. And then there's a bunch of advanced configuration in here, like where you can label it and all that stuff. So I'm gonna save this, and we'll see houses show up over here.
Nice.
If we want this to show up in GraphQL, there is another plugin you do need, and so I have that here. It's WP GraphQL for advanced custom fields. So we have a new beta version. You can download on GitHub. It's github.com/wp-graphql-ACF. So it's the new beta version. There's two repositories for this. There's an old plugin that exists and a new plugin. The new one in beta supports what I'm demoing here. So, so we can activate this new version. And what happens if we go back to our post types in ACF? If we click into here, well, back on that screen actually, you'll see these new columns, whether the type shows in GraphQL or not.
Nice.
And so this post type, since we registered it before we had WP GraphQL for ACF, it doesn't show in GraphQL. So we have to tell ACF that we want this to show in GraphQL. So under this advanced configuration tab, we now have a GraphQL tab.
Ooh.
And we can say show GraphQL, and we can determine like how it shows in the schema. So we can click save changes here. And now if we go to our graphical IDE, the schema will load, and we should, since we just registered a type called house, we can search house, and now we have all this house information in our schema. So if I go, I'm gonna open this in a new tab, and I'm gonna create a new house. So we call this like, I don't publish this house, and now in GraphQL, in graphical, we can query for houses, nodes,
Oh, wow.
ID, title, content.
Wait a
And so
minute,
now we can query these houses.
So with the power of literally 2 plugins with ACF, because now you can actually register post types, you don't have to download, I guess it's the CPT UI plugin that you used to have to do.
Yeah.
And then your extension of advanced custom fields with WP GraphQL. I literally have a custom post type you just made house, and the data is available with the fields. Wow, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, and so now in Faust we can actually take advantage of this. So in Faust,
Yeah.
if we modify our schema, and we have to tell Faust about that. And so there's depending on how we modify it, but Faust has a command called generate. So we can run this generate.
This is npm run generate, I think.
Oh, npm.
Run generate. Try that because I think they just, yeah. Is that right?
I think I'm getting it's this setting. So if you try, so yeah, that one you actually might want to leave in. I tried to run this generate command and it failed, and that's because my GraphQL settings I had introspection disabled.
Got it.
So anyway, what happened is we registered a new post type houses to our schema. I need to tell Faust about that change, so I'm running a command called npm run generate. That does an introspection query against GraphQL endpoint. And if this setting, enable public introspection, if that is turned off, Faust can't do what it needs to do. So I ran that command, and now Faust is gonna know what a house is. So I can run my dev environment again, and what we can do is take the URI for this house, right? And we can go in our localhost. Is my site running? I think it's running. Yeah. So I can do house, red house, and it's going to evolve to a template, right? So I can, yep, so if we look at our console log, it's gonna try and resolve to our template hierarchy said, if there's a template called single house, red house, use that. Otherwise single house, otherwise singular, otherwise index. So it's using the singular template, right? So singular template is just a basic template that queries for some basic information like title, content, and author, and it outputs it. If we want it again, like a specific template for houses, we can come back in here and we can say, okay, we want all houses to have this template. So we can come into our templates and we can say single house,
Oh man, this is great. Yeah.
right? And we could say that all houses are going to have this template, return.
This is the house per se.
Yeah, I'm just saying this is the house template. But now if we come back, our houses have this template, our posts have whatever, this template.
Got hello Marie.
Yep, it has this template. Our hard-coded next page has this template, right? So we can mix getting data from WordPress. We can mix getting hard-coded pages in Next. Like maybe you have these one-off landing pages and you just want to toss them in Next. Like go ahead and do it. Or you have stuff like your blog that you need to get from WordPress. You want that to be dynamic, or houses, or cars, or whatever content you're managing.
And is there any need for, you didn't write any PHP?
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, super cool. So now, we can do post types, and then we can also do ACF field groups. So let's say, let's create a field group real quick, and we'll attach it to the houses. So what are some things? We'll just call it house fields. And like, what would a house have? A house would have like number, and we'll call like bedrooms. And so we can there's a GraphQL tab on these two, and we can determine whether that field should show in GraphQL and what the name of the field should be in GraphQL. So we'll just do bedrooms and bathrooms. So bathrooms will also be a number, and we'll say bathrooms, right? And GraphQL is called bathrooms. And then the field group, we can determine whether this field group should show in GraphQL or not. And so I want this field group to show in GraphQL. And the location, I'm gonna assign this field group in the WordPress admin to show in the house content type. And if we go to GraphQL tab, looks like that didn't update, so we can update that. We want this to show up on the house type. So I'm gonna click Save Changes. And so if we go look at our GraphQL IDE again, we should be able to query this content. So I'll show you how to do that too. So if we look at our field groups, the field group we just created, it has a GraphQL type called house fields.
Yeah.
Right? And so we can take that in our graphical IDE and we can go search for that in the schema to see what is available to query on house fields. So I'm going to search that here. We're going to say house has a field called house fields. House fields has fields called bedrooms and bathrooms. So houses, I can say on with ECF house fields, I believe. I can say house fields, and then I can say bedrooms, bathrooms. Right, so now I can query for a house. We didn't populate this, so let's go populate that on a red house. Edit. So we can edit our red house to have 2 bedrooms, or it'll be 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. We can update that, come back to GraphQL, query that. We now have 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, right? So now we can query this data, put it in our template, right? I'm not gonna do that whole thing because we already talked about how to do that. But yeah, so with advanced custom fields, you can create content types, you can create custom taxonomies, and then you can create the fields necessary to input custom data on those types. Yeah, as you stated, all without PHP, and then you can write your templates in React, and you're off to the races. So now I'm hoping we can successfully do this, but I'm going to commit all these changes that I made here. It's not going to look pretty, but I'm going to commit these changes. Let's see. I'm going to get rid of the get request one that I don't want to commit that. I'm going to undo this change. I'll just leave it as is. And I'm going to commit those changes. And we are going to update the headless site. So I'm going to commit this. I'm using an app called Source Tree. I love it. It's great. Forget. So I'm going to push this. I'm going to push this up to my main branch. And this is connected to Atlas. So WP Engine Atlas hosting. This is connected there. So I'm going to go to my dashboard over there. So when I push, I have several sites up here. But the one for this meetup right here, or actually that's my WordPress site. My Atlas front end. This Omaha Faust meetup, I can click into here, and we'll see that it's rebuilding. So I made code changes, and I pushed it to my GitHub repo, and so my GitHub repo is telling Atlas to rebuild my site to account for those changes. So as soon as this is done building, and we can look at the logs here, as soon as this is done building, we should be able to view the site with our current changes. So this is still running, so it should take just a minute.
And the power of this too is for y'all getting into the headless approach for WordPress. Atlas is essentially what I would essentially call a Jamstack host, where it has an all-encompassing host to your front end, your node front end, because it has a full running node server. It also connects to your GitHub repository so that you have that Git workflow where literally you just saw Jason git push and it deploys and it pulls down a build server, builds your code, and then puts it up on Atlas's CDN. Now on the back end side of things, Jason just flickered through that he said, oh shoot, I have my WordPress sites. Those are my WordPress sites. Atlas gives you a WordPress install as well on the back end. So you essentially have all these things under one roof. So that's cool. And this should be live on the internet.
Yeah, so now I can take what we were looking at on localhost 3000. I can actually look at a real domain. So it's a WP Engine powered domain. But if you're an Atlas customer, obviously you can point this to your own domain. For sample site though. So there's our brand page that we just built locally, and we pushed it up. If we go to pasted something wrong. So here's our house template. What was our other one? We had a post in there. What was our post? Yeah, so we can click view. That will take us there actually. So another new post. What do we have? We also have like sample page somewhere. Sample page. I can click view there. Sample page. I can go edit this. I can update it. I can refresh. I don't know.
It'll probably take a couple of minutes, because I think it's like, I think the ISR is every,
Oh yeah.
in the Faust default, it's every 15 minutes, Jason, but you can
Yeah.
You can change that.
Changes that.
You can change that, because I think on your wpgraphql.com site, I think it's every 60 seconds, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Showing me how fast it is with, and I'll edit that out.
Hey, I'll be
Hmm. Hmm. Is that the end of the video, Matt?
Yep, that is the end of that video. I figured if you guys want to do a bio break or anything like that, give it, 5 or 10 minutes, whatever you need, and then Terry actually has a presentation to do live herself. But yeah, the biggest takeaway from the video is basically you can use Faust with headless setup in WordPress and with advanced custom fields and all those type of things, and you can basically build out an entire site using React components and Next.js, and it basically wires WordPress database and all that information to your headless front end.
Cool. So just out of curiosity, I noticed that they had to like use some beta version of some side plugin that allows the ACF functionality. Like, was that just because like they just literally released a new version of ACF that's dramatically different like 4 weeks ago?
Correct. ACF is basically being rewritten.
Yeah.
They're bunch of functionality. They're redoing security. They're doing a lot of different things with it, and the team actually has expanded significantly because we acquired that company. So yeah, you're gonna see a lot of big things. More efficient, more features, and that kind of stuff. The team has basically tripled in size.
Sweet. Cool. All right. Well, if anybody needs a break, go ahead and take a break. We'll take a 5-minute break. Obviously, open it up for discussion. If anybody wants to talk about anything in those 5 minutes, then we can kick off that next talk with you, Terry, if you'll be ready at that time. Awesome.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks. All right, man. I'm gonna try and fix what's going on with this freaking.
So, is the advantage to that, because I find it very similar to what we did with our site, but we don't use PHP.
Right. Yeah.
Is
So.
the advantage with this, like, oh, you can use like these new JavaScript frameworks now with WordPress instead of having to be stuck to PHP?
Yes, absolutely. That's definitely what it is. Yeah. So. Anything JavaScript related, it makes it way easier to integrate it. Also, you got to keep in mind that you're still creating the view with JavaScript. So what that means is that you can do all kinds of fancy things that you can't do with strictly server-side PHP.
Because you could wrap your content in now JavaScript.
Yeah, yeah.
I got it.
Yeah, so interesting things like interesting view transitions. Also, there's like a perceived performance like benefit or whatever, right? When you're doing things with JavaScript, it's a little faster than PHP. So there's that aspect to it. Dude, I don't know what is going on.
move those to headless. But also, I mean, I'm formerly worked on some pretty big multi-sites, and like it really depends, you know, on the server setup. Me personally, but I guess sorry guys, end of the day here for me.
No, I mean, it makes sense what you're saying. Like, so in certain circumstances, it is advantageous to go headless. And then also on our side too, just so you know, Rob, there's been some work done with caching, with WP GraphQL, things like that, to speed things up. But in general, if you put one against the other, and you don't have like an enterprise level type of caching system and things for WordPress, in general, headless tends to seem like it's faster. It'll answer your question.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of roughly what we were saying here in the room when we were talking about it as well. Is that like if your site's not, you know, well optimized, heavily cached, there's kind of no comparison between headless and a regular WordPress site. But if you're following, you know, standard best practices and you're like super heavily caching your WordPress site and you're on a really good host and you've done all the right things, I mean, in my opinion, it's more of a perceived performance enhancement as opposed to you know, an actual performance enhancement. So yeah, definitely feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, until we actually do some type of A/B test or experimentation around that, it would be really hard to prove that out. I'm just talking purely theoretically here.
Well, there's
Oh, yeah.
no, it makes sense. There's also a few other things to consider as well. So like on the component-based side in the frameworks, you have things like lazy loading. So you don't have to load the entire site at once, so you make it a significantly faster initial load and stuff like that. So I think the advantage in the WordPress site that is highly optimized might be the fact that when things are cached and set up that way, you might get the overall sites over time might be faster. But I think initially, I think the headless site or the component-based library site is going to be a little bit faster.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, does anybody else in the room have any questions about any of this stuff? I mean, is there anybody that's like totally lost on like what the heck we're even talking about right now?
What about Vue.js support?
Vue.js support.
Yeah. So Vue.js support. We've had folks looking for other frameworks besides, you know, Next.js. We're not saying that it's not going to happen. It's just not on our current timeline. But not to say that Faust can't eventually support it. And I believe we do have some folks that are using it. Our core package, just how we have it set up in an NPM. Like there's the core package, and then should be able to, you know, use that kind of with other frameworks. But there's no like first class support. Is what I'm getting at right now for those other frameworks.
And I think part of the reason for this is because, especially in Atlas, a huge majority of the headless people that are using it are using Next.js and React. So I think that's why Faust went that direction. But there have been talks, I don't know, you know, if it'll come to fruition or not, but doing like a Faust API basically that will allow you to use whatever framework you want. Something like that could be interesting.
Yeah, we're hoping for some more coverage in the future, but it's going to be a little bit further out since we have a lot of stuff related to Gutenberg that we're currently pressing through.
And TypeScript as well, actually. We just created a TypeScript scaffold for Faust.
Cool. So as part of that, like, I guess my understanding of like kind of the dependency tree or hierarchy there is that like Next.js itself is built on React, and that's like essentially a server-side React. And then from there, you guys, Faust.js is essentially just another layer of abstraction on top of Next.js. So that would be quite the big hurdle to try and move away from that and go to another JavaScript framework, because you're not just talking about a front-end framework, you're talking about a front-end framework that has been abstracted to work on the back end as well. So I don't know what the Vue.js equivalent of Next.js is. Isn't that Nuxt.js, or am I just making stuff up?
I think it is Nuxt.
Yeah. Yeah, so you guys would have to, Faust.js would have to have some kind of adaptation or something along those lines for Nuxt as opposed to Next. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that like an accurate, I don't know, summary or explanation of that?
Yeah, basically as it sits now, we would have to create a version that would be friendly with each individual framework. So that people, obviously they talked about Vue, they talked about Svelte, they talked about, what's that one called, the one that Jeff likes, I can't think of the name. Astro, yeah. So there's been, several that are in the talks, and we actually have, paying clients that are requesting some of these things. But as of right now, yeah, it's just Next.js and React setup. But yeah, good question for sure. I know that's probably a lot of people's first question.
That's interesting. So do you guys find yourself kind of like in the Ionic situation where like Ionic was originally strictly married to Angular, and now you guys are trying to find ways to kind of decouple yourself or be a little bit more agnostic from that main framework?
I would say that we are definitely building right now, like in an agnostic way. It's just that we don't have the bandwidth to go and add those other things. But if you look at our monolith repo now, like it's very much set up in a way where we are prepared for when that day comes.
Well, that's pretty cool.
We haven't married. We're working closely with Next and React, but we're not committed in that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty cool. So I have if anybody else has questions, please jump in because I can ask questions for hours. It's whatever. But
I've got one.
Okay,
question.
go ahead.
With WordPress, one of the main benefits for early stage developers, I guess, is the plugin library. When you're using a different front end to display, do you lose that functionality? To like add a plugin that lets you put pop-ups on the front of your website, right? Like, how would that work? I'm assuming it wouldn't to then display. So how are you guys kind of bridging that, I guess, or is there no bridge?
Yeah, I can answer that one. So that's a very very good question. And when I joined the team, I was kind of wondering like the same thing. And to answer that, I mean, like some plugins right now, I guess if you want to say it like the GraphQL ACF, if that counts. I wouldn't even consider that like kind of in the same realm though. But like something like Yoast, to your point, maybe that's adding some stuff on the front end or some other plugin that adds something, yeah, like a notification. It's very much up to that plugin right now. Like, we're not doing anything on our side yet to automatically load those styles. However, we're kind of like that, like the bridge or the glue between that. So, for example, there's a CLI command right now in our Faust framework that pulls over the global styles, but that is very much like that's an SSG type thing. So all your base styles and the global styles from like the blocks, those variables, you can get those over. Faust provides a way to get them, but that's on every build. So SSG, static site generation. Yes. Yeah, so it's not a no, but we are looking at ways right now that are kind of, actually, let me back up a little bit. We're like noticing there's kind of two different use cases for Faust, and that's someone that's very enterprisey, maybe that they just want to pull in a little bit of a WordPress site, but their site is majority like something else, just monolithic. That's like one type of person, and then you have another type of scenario, more so where it's like, all right, we want one-to-one parity with WordPress, and that's kind of what you're talking about there, where things are automatically coming over. We have the tools right now to do some of that, but yeah, it's kind of like hard to draw a line really right now, since no one's there's not a lot built up in this ecosystem currently for a headless. So yeah.
Well, that's a good point, Joe. And I think part of it too is also some of that stuff. Like if you're building a headless site from scratch, especially enterprise, especially if you're using like say you're using Tailwind or something like that, and you're using this setup, typically you're not going to be depending on a pop-up from a WordPress plugin, right? You're going to be creating a pop-up yourself using MUI or something else, using those components. I understand your question. I think it's a good question, but I think a lot of the use cases don't assume that you can use those plugins. They assume you can't. That is very interesting to think about. Another possibility too is some of the things, some of the functionality. For example, like we had one client that they wanted specific data, and they wanted to implement something with some kind of forms plugin. So what they ended up doing was writing a custom Faust plugin, and the Faust plugin allows you to manipulate data, do filters, basically anything you can do with the WordPress filters and hooks, you can do within Faust plugins. So they would tie into that data and those databases and things and pull that stuff back in Faust, and then be able to manipulate and get the things that they wanted. So in some cases you can use plugins in Faust to get around it, but out of the box it does not work that way currently.
Yeah, to kind of add on that, you can imagine, someone has a site that they're building in just like a headless sort of, its own brand, but you have, it's WordPress is not the only site. You don't want, in that case, I guess that developer wouldn't really necessarily want just every sort of style from all these plugins coming in and then kind of, polluting, if you want to call it that, their global CSS thing.
Right, like basically what you guys are trying to speak to is that like there are some scenarios where developers are trying to essentially create some kind of crazy hybrid between the data you get from WordPress and the data you get from other places, like for instance Jason used the Shopify example or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Cool. I have so many questions. Anybody else got questions?
Well, we still have about 30 minutes, so.
Good.
Yeah,
I'm gonna use 29 of them for sure. I mean, I got a million questions. So okay, cool. So as the lead maintainer of WP Rig, which is a theme development framework for WordPress, I'm curious. I mean, obviously, headless WordPress completely chops all of that up, right? They're like the theme development frameworks, WordPress themes in general, even if they're block-based, not block-based, whatever. That all goes straight in the toilet once we talk about WordPress, or headless WordPress rather. So, have you guys thought at all on your end about what a headless WordPress theme framework would be, or any has that concept come up in your guys' meetings? Have you guys kind of spitballed that idea at all or anything like that?
It's interesting you say that because, so currently, like we said, we're kind of dog fooding this. So we currently develop, we don't use it every day the same way that the developers do out in the community. So we're actually rebuilding the entire Faust.js site right now on a multi site and using Faust. And part of the process right now we're using MUI, the components and that kind of thing, it's the stock components and Motion. And we're running into some gotchas. Right, so I don't even think we've gotten to the point yet of considering how we would handle themes and things. We're still trying to figure out just like the basic implementation of a library, let alone themes and that kind of stuff. So I think it's something that could definitely be in the future. We talked about like a Faust, like a theme store, like a plugin store, where the community creates plugins and posts them, and people can download them and share them, that kind of thing. But I could see themes being something possible maybe in the future as well.
Cool, yeah. Yeah, that's definitely something. When headless started to become a thing, and I had just taken over WP Rig, it was kind of, and not just the headless situation, but also completely block based, right? Like the whole move to block based themes or whatever, which obviously has not gained full traction yet by any stretch of the imagination. But on the WP Rig side of things, or I suppose the people at Sage or whatever are probably thinking the same thing too. Like, as a maintainer of a theme development framework, how do all these crazy new things in WordPress affect us? And so, there's a little bit of disruption there, there's a little bit of game changers. So I'm just curious, if you guys are kind of thinking about that in the future. So I guess on that tip, have you guys, me personally, I'm kind of obsessed with Stencil.js web components, and not that Stencil.js is the only not a library type of way of building web components. There's other JavaScript tools that allow you to build, standard web components. Have you guys either experimented with a heavily web component based I guess, theme or set of front end elements? Or do you have any clients that are experimenting with that type of an approach at all?
I know for the most part we're not personally. As far as clients, do you know of any clients, Joe or Terry, that are doing anything like that?
I do not know.
Yeah, I think the developer relations team would be better, able to answer that kind of question, but we can definitely get back to you on that one.
All right, cool. Yeah, I mean, I know web components have been talked about for quite a while now. I want to say like a solid 4 to 5 years. They've been getting traction, and I feel like they still haven't like fully, got like a significant level of adoption because you have so many people using JavaScript frameworks that have built-in component systems or whatever, and so.
Well, yeah, I was looking at something like lit components. Have you looked at those yet?
Yeah, yep. And so lit is definitely like a competitor to Stencil, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I've worked with lit components, and essentially, if people aren't sure what we're talking about, basically you build a web component and then you can import that into any framework. You can use it in Vue, React, whatever you want. Lit is one of those libraries, and it works pretty well for most people. In some cases, it doesn't have all the functionality you're looking for, but yeah, this is a really interesting idea to think about.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that would be up to like, I guess that's probably out of your hands as WP Engine at that point. It's more of like a, hey, we would hand that responsibility off to some other developer that maintains their own, I guess, like type of theme system or headless WordPress theme system, if you will, or whatever. But yeah, cool. So let's see. At WordCamp Omaha 2018, I think, we had a very interesting talk about something called brainless WordPress as opposed to headless WordPress. I don't know if any of you caught that talk or if you've heard that concept before at all, but I'm wondering if you have, like, have you guys played around with that at all in cooperation with Faust or
For those who don't know what that is, what is brainless?
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Everybody's like, what is that?
People
So
just refer to me as brainless usually.
Yeah, can we get the quick
It's a
version
blank
of this?
HTML document.
Yeah, what's the brainless part? I'm excited to know about this.
I mean, I am not going to do his talk justice by trying to summarize it in a couple minutes because it was like a full 45-minute long talk at WordCamp Omaha. But the video recording of this is up on the WordCamp Omaha YouTube channel. And I believe he gave that talk at some other WordCamps as well. So I would just go out there and check it out. But I think the summary of it essentially is the concept of having the WordPress server generate essentially like the shell of the components, or like maybe, so like if you think about WordPress generating the head of the document, if you think about that, if WordPress is generating the head of the document and maybe like your div ID equals app or whatever like element, and then some JavaScript framework comes in and fills in the rest of that, right? Technically, since the WordPress server is generating the head, then it's not technically headless. So if it's not headless, then what is it? Well, he refers to it as brainless, essentially. Again, I'm not going to do his whole talk justice, but I guess the idea is kind of having the WordPress PHP server do some of what WordPress is good at, like enqueuing styles, enqueuing scripts, generating your head, dynamically enqueuing different scripts and styles on different pages in different scenarios, and then having a minimal amount of markup for the actual body of the document generated by the server, and then allowing the JavaScript framework to come in from there and do whatever it is. So I believe in his specific example, he was using Angular to come in and fill in the rest of that. But yeah, I don't know.
And REST API as well. I'd be interested to see how that works with WP GraphQL.
Right, yeah. So
Same. Thank you for sharing.
yeah, no doubt about it. I honestly, I feel bad. It's been like, I don't know, that was like over 4 years ago, I think, or something. So I'm blanking on the gentleman's name that gave that talk. He goes by BMO. I remember his nickname is BMO. So
Ben Moore.
yes,
Ben Moore.
yes, Ben Moore. Yeah. So yep, that's his name. Thank you. So that was Ben Moore's talk at WP Omaha back in 2018. So I guess if you want to know more about brainless WordPress, reach out to BMO. He'll fill you in there.
So there was a question that may not come up, but it's very interesting, and I don't want to put you on the spot, Joe. But basically, when you're in the editing experience, you have the editing toolbar across the top. So Joe actually recreated that experience in Faust for headless. I'm not sure. Let's see. Is there any way to quickly show that, or maybe just talk about some of the behind the scenes? But yeah, so in general, a lot of people will you can edit. You go to different pages. You can log in and out and things like that. That experience has been recreated in Faust as well. So you can actually create a log in, log out, use the off hook type of situation. And then Joe actually created a recreation of the admin toolbar for headless side. It's pretty slick.
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay, so I mean, again, please step in, people. I could ask questions all day. I'm so nerdy. I live this life, yo. So
I have something here just on that last topic, quick. The one before
The brainless.
Yeah. So I just want to point out that we can currently query what scripts and styles are on a post to and a GraphQL. I don't think that a video went over that, but yeah, that's totally possible, and we see people do that too. Just, hey, get me my data for this page with GraphQL, but also what scripts and styles are already on here. That's totally possible, and that's set up to do.
does that work? Does that work at the block level too? Because I know now blocks are able to in-queue their own styles and scripts based on what page they're on. So does that all integrates in as well? I'm guessing yes, but I just want to make sure.
I would have to double check on that one. It's possible. I just don't remember on that if that's implemented yet. All right.
Yeah, Theo's our resident expert in Gutenberg, but basically the React Gutenberg bridge allows you to put on the blocks, display them, and then you can do custom blocks as well, and style and those type of things within Faust. But as far as editing and what you're talking about and queuing certain scripts and things like that on a block level, I would have to say that's probably not there yet. But like we said, Gutenberg is a huge focus, so things like that will probably be coming in the near future, hopefully.
Cool.
I have one quick question.
Yeah.
Can you guys talk about use cases for websites that you think Faust is specifically a good fit for? I ask because I've worked with some websites in the past, they're Python based where you're really perfect use case for a database driven site, right? Like every baseball game that's ever been played with how many hits they have and filter it by all these things. Looking at the way that you guys were adding stuff with advanced custom fields, it seems like you could build out modules for, the Detroit Tigers every year, every baseball game, every strikeout, whatever. And so my mind starts spinning about crazy, use cases. Do you guys, whereas regular WordPress would probably not be great for that. Can you just talk a little bit about kind of those great use cases, unique use cases, that type of stuff that you guys see specifically with Faust?
Yeah, so we have to have some clients of different sizes. For example, like one is specifically like a firm, so they do design and stuff for other companies, and they're using Faust and those type of things for their sites and also with some of their clients. We have some larger situations like you're talking about where they're using advanced custom fields and they have a ton of data, and between WP GraphQL, which makes the data portion easy, and the fact that Faust actually can pull on that data and consume it very easily, it makes a perfect situation where something that may not be WordPress friendly, I apologize for the horn out there, but something that may not be WordPress friendly up front, if you pair that with Faust, then it becomes very friendly for the developer to use. So to answer your question, I think any site that you want to be fast, And even if you're dealing with large amounts of data, with WP graphic build, you can pick that specific data that you want, manipulate it exactly how you want, and then you can display it exactly how you want. So you have total control over the situation. You're not limited by WordPress or anything else as far as the way you display those type of things.
And to add to Matt's answer there, also, like a small blog, and kind of to like Rob, your point earlier with like your mileage may vary really too on just depending on a hosting solution. You know, you can have really fast traditional WordPress sites that are serving millions of like people, and that's just because their infrastructure that they're on it's like top notch. But there's another use case too of like headless. If you have a multiple array of like outlets that you distribute info to, so maybe I guess less so like your more traditional blog or just editorial site, but yeah, I have data, I want it to be on this site, but I want it to be on like 4 other things too. Maybe I have an app that I want to eventually build. You know, headless WordPress would allow you to consume that. You're a mobile app, so consume that same data that is on your WordPress site. So.
I have a follow-up question, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, that's helpful. Like, one use case that the company I work for, we have like 100 sites on a multi-site, broke them all apart for various reasons. Do some broadcasted content between those sites which sounds like a good use case for, you know, kind of that one piece of content on a bunch of different sites or something. Is there, have people married like a Faust site where you can kind of broadcast all this stuff out from to another site where it is a typical WordPress site? Like, is that even possible? Does my question make sense?
Yeah. So I can reiterate it just for my clarity here. You're looking to get the WordPress data from one site to like serve it to like a headless, sort of maybe like a Next front end, but also to another WordPress site?
Yeah, I think that would be the case.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess there's no like solution we have for that. It's like more so just querying the data on that other WordPress site. You know, I guess if it is a traditional WordPress site, that would probably happen within a plugin or just hard coded, you know, in a theme somewhere. If you're doing like a custom theme development. So yeah, it's definitely possible. Just as simple as querying source like that truth site. But yeah, no like Faust plugins to like help you out right now to connect those two.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I actually,
It's muted
while
here.
we were talking, it sounds relevant. We've got, I mentioned that there was a Decode conference that happened last month, and I pulled up just 2 of the slides from that because I think it might be relevant to elucidate the way that we're doing that with blocks. So I can share my screen for a moment if you'd like to take a look, and I can walk you through it.
Yes, please do. I'm very interested in what you guys are doing, kind of under the hood there to bridge the gap with Gutenberg and Faust.
It's proprietary.
Can you see this okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So essentially, we talked a little bit about the problem. There is not a streamlined way for us to translate Gutenberg blocks from somebody's website which has a React-based front end. It doesn't work. The decoupling breaks the ability to use the Gutenberg blocks naturally. And there's not enough solutions right now that are scalable or intuitive. Folks are just making it up as they go as the Wild West. And so a lot of answers remain for folks on those teams. So what about styling? What about reusability? What about dynamic blocks or inner blocks? And essentially what our team has built out and continues to build out in order to address this is called the React Gutenberg Bridge. And it's a solution that's in two parts right now. First is a way to programmatically expose the Gutenberg blocks so that they can be parsed and read on the headless front end. And that's the plugin called WP GraphQL Content Blocks. Secondly, we've got a connector to facilitate the setup and rendering of those blocks on the headless front end in Faust, and that's Faust WP Blocks. So your website, it takes the Gutenberg blocks, it gets exposed via the WP GraphQL Content Blocks plugin to WP GraphQL. So you will have to use it in tandem with WP GraphQL. You'll need both of those installed. And then it comes over to your Faust app, and it enables the customization and discovery and rendering of those blocks. You do need to do a lot of like customization right now. We're building out default blocks, but it makes the process a lot easier for folks and gives it a scaffold to work on instead of building it from scratch.
And also, for that stuff, Rob, to answer your question, so obviously we have the repos, and we'll share the links to the repos with you. But even besides that, if you go to Faust.js.org, we have tutorials that walk you through that. So you actually can kind of see under the what's going on.
Yeah, those should be shared they're shared on the meeting chat here. If you're not able to pull those from Zoom for some reason, sometimes it can be finicky. Maybe Matt could send them to you.
Sure.
Nice.
Thanks, Gary.
Let's answer your question.
No, that's great. That's a very helpful, infographic. So I appreciate that. So I'm curious, like, I'm only thinking as a developer who is super nerdy and I've probably dove a little too deep into what Gutenberg is kind of doing behind the scenes and under the hood. I'm curious, in the scenario where you guys exposing these blocks to Faust, to me it's funny, but maybe to not most people, is PHP still kind of server side doing some of the work there to like render, especially with dynamic blocks, and then passing that to another server-side framework in Next.js? Is that kind of what's going on under the hood there?
There are some PHP components, yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That was kind of my speculation, but I wanted to confirm. I just think it's hilarious and ironic that like you've got these two server-side systems that are essentially talking to each other. One's doing most of the work, and then Next.js comes along and is like, oh, cool, I'll take that and just act like I rendered that and I did that, and then expose it the rest of the way, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, the PHP side basically does all the parsing and sets it up as a string, and then on our side, on the Faust side, we're pulling that and kind of parsing it out to actually display it. Yeah.
Right, yeah, because it would make it I would imagine that would be extremely difficult to do, given that you only have, in many cases, nothing but HTML comments to work with there.
Comments, yeah, the comments have to be converted, the attributes have to all be set up and all that kind of stuff, yeah.
Right.
And that's part of the, Theo, like I said, Theo's the kind of the lead on the Gutenberg stuff, but he's done some amazing work and kind of like breaking that all down and making it so we can actually use it. Maybe we can get him to do a future talk just on Gutenberg or something, but yeah, it'd be interesting.
Yeah, and not to go ahead and plug for the Decode conference talk again, but we do have a demo and a technical discussion after that would, I think, help answer some of the questions and get your mental model for how that works in place.
Is there an easy way to get that video recording of that talk other than, I guess, after the fact signing up for the Decode conference and getting like access to the back end, or do you guys have it on your YouTube channel?
A little bit of an obstacle. I'll ask our coordinator and see if we can get just a video to you, a raw video.
Okay, cool. I just didn't know if you guys had like a heavily maintained YouTube channel or something where you guys are posting those up after the fact or whatever.
Yeah, we should check it. We should touch base with Deborah and see if they have that posted on YouTube yet.
Yeah, because there was a lot of good content. Obviously a lot of us from Buildertrend definitely tuned in for Decode, but I can't imagine everybody did. And so, I mean, for people that are watching it live, it was great. And for people that registered, we all have access to those videos, but I don't know about the rest of the world. So,
Great points. Thank you. Yeah, I'll be sure to go back and ask about that. That's a good point.
cool. Well, does anybody else have any other questions? We're nearing the end of the time, and I don't want to eat up too much of these fine developers' time here. Especially, I don't know if any of you are on the East Coast, but I'm sure it's probably getting a little late over there.
Oh, Joe is. Thank you for being with us, Joe.
Yeah, happy to be here. Yeah, any multi-site. I know we had discussed a little bit about multi-site in the beginning. I was out of the room at that moment, but yeah, happy to take any multi-site answers or questions too.
Yeah, our big thing is just the possibility of being able to use Faust to essentially talk to a WordPress multi-site and possibly use it to do some static site generation, or even if it's not static site generation, just the regular headless WordPress thing. Although headless WordPress could mean static or non-static implementations.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Joe, I don't know if you're able to see it, but Joe also posted a headless and brainless, not that one, it was use cases, just below that, the headless WordPress use cases from our Developer team. So that might be helpful in figuring that out too. It's a really thorough article. Thank you for finding that, Joe.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's over at our Torque Mag.
I did see, I just was Googling while we were talking, it looks like about a week ago they posted some of those decode videos on the WP Engine website, so I think I found one with headless stuff on there. There might be others.
Cool. And then I don't know if the recording of the Zoom call like keeps the chat or whatever, but obviously like in the end YouTube video that we post, we'll put all these links. We'll try to get these into the description of the YouTube video so that people can reference those after the fact.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
For sure. Cool. Are there any other questions from anyone in the room? All right, cool. Well, I mean, I think we'll wrap it up. We're right there at 7 o'clock. Joe, especially thanks to you for hanging in there till 8 o'clock at night Eastern time. We really appreciate it over here.
Best, Joe. Thank you.
Yeah, and then obviously big thanks to Matt for kind of organizing this whole cooperation between WP Omaha and WP Engine. And then obviously Teresa, thank you so much for your time and talking about all that. So yeah, this has been great.
Come visit us in Omaha.
Yeah. I mean, it would be great if we could do one in person in the future. But yeah, no, this was fantastic. So thank you very much, all of you, for your time.
Yeah, and the one thing I would just say is, obviously, thanks for hosting us, Rob, and setting everything up and working with me to get this going. The other thing, too, obviously, thanks to Jason Ball and Fran for assisting. Even though they were crazy busy, they still recorded something for you guys, so I think that's awesome. And then also, I would challenge you, go to Faust.js.org and try and go through the Getting Started. Go through the Getting Started guide and link up a Faust front end to a WordPress instance.
Yeah, like I said, I would be very interested in in doing a little like speed comparison and creating a little experiment between a heavily cached and optimized regular monolithic WordPress site and a headless site that have the exact same content on them, all styled the same, all looking the same, and just kind of like almost like a drag race, like a web drag race of sorts. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Fantastic. If you do end up doing that, please, if you would share the results, it would be so helpful and really just interesting.
Cool. Yeah, great. All right, well, we'll wrap it up again. Thank you very much to everybody on the call and to everybody in the room. And we're excited to see more from Faust.js and what you guys are doing at WP Engine in the future. Thanks for everything you guys are doing.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Good to meet you. Recording.